let's move on. Saturday, this could be a really tough one, George, on Saturday. Newcastle are they're going to be baring their teeth because they've just been embarrassed, frankly, by a top-class Bournemouth side. So they're going to really want to go and prove a point, aren't they?
Yeah, Bournemouth have kind of set the blueprint for how to get at them, because before that game, they looked unbeatable. Isak was in unbelievable form, looked like he might try and go and break that Premier League consecutive goal scoring record. And Ivan Juric pointed out that Bournemouth are brilliant. And to ask Southampton to go and do that, they might be able to do elements of it in terms of the pressing and getting at them, but they're down the bottom of the Premier League. They've won one game all season. So to ask them to do what Bournemouth have done, a Bournemouth team in brilliant form, without a striker, let's remember as well, they've managed to do that. But yeah, it's going to be a tough game. I think if you were to have look back at the game when they played on the opening day of the season, they should have won that one. Down to 10 men, Newcastle were. They had chances, then they gift them a goal and don't really threaten them since then. And you look at the second half against Forest, if you can sort of take how they were in the second half against Forest, and they can take heart from the fact they've been able to get at Newcastle this season, just didn't take chances, then you can look at it positively that way. But I think my thing is, how do the players still manage to take positives out of games when they do end up losing every week? It must be difficult because it's so disheartening. They played brilliantly against Man United for 75 minutes and then have 15 shocking minutes and lose the game 3-1. 45 terrible minutes against Forest, 45 minutes that were brilliant in the second half, still lose the game. That's got to be quite difficult to keep balancing that. We know they're not good enough for the Premier League, and they probably know that as well now. So that's got to be quite tough to pick yourself up to then play against Newcastle. But at the same time, this is what they want to do, right? They don't want to be embarrassed. They don't want to break that Premier League record. As much as Dan Ramsdale says it's not something they're speaking about, I imagine it will be in the back of some people's heads because no one wants to make that history. And if they can get a point against Newcastle, even Juric's first point in the Premier League, that's one step towards having a better second half of the season.
Couldn't agree more. The sports psychologists are going to be really earning their money this season, aren't they, Martin? Yeah. So George said there, Bournemouth did lay out kind of a blueprint of where the weaknesses are for Newcastle, and I do agree there will be points in the game where we will do something in the press. What are the chances that we do string that 90 minutes together? Because honestly, we played Man United off the park at Old Trafford, and if it weren't for a superb little player, we would have walked away with the 3 points. But regardless of that little play, we should have won the game, right? So is this the game where the 90 minutes come together?
Newcastle are a far, far, far better side than Man United. I think Man United are dreadfully poor, and they're where they are in the league for a reason. Look, they weren't great when we played them. Newcastle bounced back. They were 9 games. They had 9 victories in all competitions going into the weekend's game. So it was a surprise result. They obviously put a huge amount into their games, running into the Bournemouth game, and they just got caught off guard. Bournemouth are a good side, and I think Juric, he wants his side to play similar sort of football. Really, that's what they're looking to do. And look, them and Brentford, they're good sides, really good the way that even Bournemouth and Brentford are. But come back to Newcastle, I think it's a tough game. They'll be looking to bounce back, but they've got a great side. You look at the midfield three. I was looking at their recent lineups. Toon looks really good at the moment, and when I've seen him play, Joe Linton, Bruno Guimaraes is in there as well. 3 really good players. So you need to win the football games are won inevitably in midfield, how good you can dictate the game, and everything will go through Toonali. When I've seen him play, Burn and Botman are huge monsters at the back. Paul has to play, and he has to occupy those two centre backs for me and get up against them. And then you've got to try and get the fullback somehow, Hall and Livramento. That's who's played there predominantly. Livramento's in favour at the moment. We know all about him. It'd be interesting to see what reception he gets back at St Mary's. But they're deadly going forward. Front three's brutal, isn't it? Look at Alexander Isak. He's probably the best striker in Europe at the moment for form. Yeah, he had an off day last week, but he's been brilliant. Gordon off that left-hand side comes inside. They cause so many problems. They'll be a real handful, and we'll have to start the game well. And there's something we don't do, but we'll have to start the game well. St Mary's is a sellout, which is unbelievable. Again, so they have to give the fans something to cheer about. They have to start showing fight and desire. go back to the Brentford game, and I said it afterwards. There was no fight, there was no desire, there was no togetherness, no commitment, and no wanting to wear the shirt for the fans. They're going to have to give all of that to get anything, to give themselves a slight chance against Newcastle. 110 from every single player on the pitch, and have a go at them, and just use it as a cup final. You have to treat games like cup finals when you're like where we are, and just give the fans something to cheer about, because they deserve it. They don't deserve performances like we saw in the first half against Forest, and we certainly don't. Nobody deserves what we got dished up against Brentford, because it was just embarrassing. I don't want to be embarrassed again.
That's the main thing, isn't it? Embarrassment. Yeah, I hope Tino gets a good response, because it wasn't like he was pushing for a move. In fact, it was quite the opposite. I think, if I remember rightly, at the beginning of the last season, his whole thing was about repaying us for what we'd done through his injury. And it just so happened that Newcastle were willing to take a big £50 million gamble on the fact he was going to stay fit and play as well as he has. And he's, I said it when we first signed him and he first started playing, he will be England's right back for a long, long time, because he is top notch. He is superb. The only person standing in his way now, realistically, is Trent Alexander-Arnold. And yes, that's obviously some pretty mean competition. What do you think, George, about Eddie Howe as a manager? Because there was kind of a couple of grumblings earlier on in the season when things weren't going too well. A few pockets of fans were getting a bit sort of like, has he hit his ceiling? Is this as far as he can take us? Is there some, and I watched his full, I don't know if you have, I watched his full sit down interview on the turn of the year he did with Simon Jordan, where he talked about the lack of English managers and being recognised as kind of the best English manager. What do you think of him as a coach? Is he the best available option for England right now? Were you surprised that England themselves didn't actually go for Eddie Howe, like he publicly said it?
Yeah, I think he is the best English coach, really, isn't he? That's quite, if you do it on a table of who's where in the league, he's top of any English coach that's available. In some ways, not surprised. I think Thomas Tuchel is a better coach than him. Obviously, you've got the whole thing about a German in charge of England, or just a non-English person in charge of England, and that's rumbled a few people, and a few people are annoyed purely by the fact of where their manager comes from, which is a bit baffling to me personally. Surely you want a manager who's going to win you games, and I think there will come a time where Eddie Howe does get the England job. I think that's pretty natural, unless something crazy happens where he falls apart as a manager. But I don't see that. He's done it for a while now. He transformed Bournemouth, and they're where they are in large part because of him. I know it didn't work out exactly how he wanted it to in the end, but he sort of took them all the way through. And yeah, he's a good coach. I think he's someone who has been given an opportunity that a lot of English or British coaches haven't necessarily been given. But that's because of the hard work and the good work he's done. Someone like Russell Martin got into the Premier League, and people sort of looked at him maybe as the next good British coach. But where Eddie Howe is very much looks to win games, I think Russell Martin fell foul of having a style of play that he wanted to stick to, and a style of play that I'm not too sure how long that's going to last at the top level. We've already seen Man City struggling with it, and I'll be interested to see what happens with other young British coaches who are looking to play this very idealistic way of football. I know Eddie Howe obviously has his way that he wants to play. I think, yeah, he's top, and I wouldn't be surprised if he was ever England coach. I think that's pretty nailed on. It's just a case of when, not if. Yeah,
it's funny because he's never really been in that upper echelon of like if the job comes available at a Chelsea and Arsenal, it's funny say Man United now, but like those types of clubs, Liverpool, he's never mentioned in that sort of top category. But he is the best we've got. I think he's, in terms of a nation, he's superb. And he spoke heavily on that interview about how he, like you said, he earned that position by getting promoted, and mainly English managers have to get promoted to get a chance in the top division. And he was sort of tearing stripes off of the media for trying to tear down managers. Like, he specifically used Russell Martin. He said, if I was in his position, which I was, I didn't change a thing that I did in the Championship, because it's an admission. He said it's an admission to the players that it's either, one, you don't think what you do is good enough, or two, you don't think they're good enough to do what you want to do. So it's like he's very honest, a very upfront guy, and I just think he is a superb coach. And with the right backing, which it looks like he's going to get, it looks like they're going to add to the squad. Having to get around FFP in the summer just gone, selling players like Minter and Anderson, he will get that back in. He's a top coach. So Martin, to end today, I'm going to have to ask a dreaded question. I'm sure you know it's coming. Can I please bother you for a score prediction for Saturday's game against Newcastle?
I'd be surprised if we don't concede at least 4. That's how I feel. We'll get beaten heavily. Will Alexander Isak, will he score a hat-trick? Probably. I'm going to captain him in my dream team because he's in my dream team leading the line. So I'm going to give him the armband this weekend. I might throw Toon in midfield as well because I love watching him play. He's just getting better every time I watch him play. Yeah, 4-0. I don't see a scoring. I don't see where the goals come from. The 2 big centre backs. So tough to play against. The Premier League is getting stronger and stronger. It's becoming a closed shop, by the way. For anyone coming up, I think you see the 3 teams go back down. There's no doubt about it. I think Ipswich may be the ones to get out of it, but I don't see it. I think Wolves have get enough points, but yeah, defeat for the Saints, unfortunately.
I think a lot. I think if Wolves lose Mateus Cunha to Forest, they could be in some serious trouble. But yeah, I agree. It is becoming a bit of a closed shop. It's a nightmare. And I've just checked, and the bigger nightmare is I don't have any Newcastle players in my team. I might have to play a wild card here because I've not used it yet. This might have to be a revamp. What do you think, George? What's the score going to be? Is Isak going to get a hat trick?
I think it comes back to which version of Saints are we going to see in that first 15, 20, 45 minutes? Because if they're like they were against Nottingham Forest, then they're going to have lost the game before they've even had a chance to show what they're about. 3-1 has been the scoreline, feels like, every game this season. I think it's been 3, 4, 5 of them. I think that's going to be the case again. Newcastle score a lot of goals. Saints don't keep a lot of goals out, do they? I think they've had a handful of clean sheets, if that. So yeah, I'm going to go 3-1.
Okay, I'm in your camp. I agree. We probably will get beaten. I am going to be the only one with some sort of optimism, and I'll go for a Desmond. I'm not going for a win. I'll go for a little 2-2. Because we've now proved that we can score more than 1 goal in a game. Like, we've now proved it. So, I mean, if it wasn't for Ole Einar, by the way, which I didn't mention, it would have been 3-3. And what a clearance that was. Unbelievable. I feel so bad I didn't mention that now. I need to remember. But yeah, superb. Yeah, thank you very much, gentlemen. That wraps that one up. If you would like to get involved with the score predictions, drop them anywhere you see this video. I want to know, and don't cheat because I will see the date on the comment. Don't come back afterwards. Yeah, thank you very much for joining. Please do drop a like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps. It just puts us about to other people who may like watching this sort of stuff like you do. Gentlemen, thank you very, very much. And yeah, up the Saints.